Let's build an APRS tracker.
Stick around and we'll get right to it.
So I need a tracker for an upcoming event later this year, and I just don't have enough APRS radios to support every single thing that we want to do. So what I'm going to do is take a Raspberry Pi Zero, a Digirg sound card, and a Baofeng, and we're going to build an APRS tracker today. Now, I got to give a big shout out to Dennis at Digirg for sending over this Digirg Lite for me to play with. This is the new production version. You may have seen the prototype that I did a video on a few weeks, maybe a couple of months back. This is the new production model, and it is pretty slick. We've got USB, well, a USB adapter on this end. It comes standard USB-C, but he does give us USB-C to USB-A in the package. And then on the other end, we've just got a 3.5 millimeter port. We can plug into this port whichever cable we need. In this case, I'll be using the Baofeng cable to go along with the Baofeng radio. Now, one thing to note about the Digirg Lite, it doesn't use the same PTT method that the original Digirg used. So in this case, we will be using what's called CM108 for our PTT. It's super easy. Don't let that get in the way. It's literally one line in the Direwolf file to configure PTT for this device. Now, before we jump to the command line and start building all of this out, it is assumed that you have your Raspberry Pi Zero with the operating system already installed. I am using, in this particular case, and I recommend using Pi OS Lite. And I actually used Bullseye for this particular build instead of using Bookworm. But that Lite version is going to allow things on the Pi Zero to run much faster. Once you get your OS installed and booted, go ahead and SSH into the Raspberry Pi, and you'll be ready to follow along with the directions coming up next. Let's go ahead and jump over to the Raspberry Pi, and let me show you guys how easy this is to get a tracker built and running. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is update and upgrade the machine. We'll do that with sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -y. Give that just a second to run, and we'll move on to the next step. Now, while we're waiting on that to finish up, I will leave a link to this page down in the description below. This will allow you to copy and paste your way through this tutorial. I am, however, going to give you a bit of explanation as we go through each step, just so you can get a better understanding of what's going on. Let's see if that's wrapped up yet. Next, we're going to be installing tmux. Tmux will be used to auto-start Direwolf once we get to that point. But right now, let's just go ahead and get that installed. After we've got tmux installed, we're going to go ahead and move to the installation of the GPS. We do need some dependencies. Guys, when you're copying these lines, be careful because they do run off the right-hand side of that box, so you can scroll back and forth. Make sure you copy the entire line. So we'll copy that first line, paste that in, and give that just a few minutes to do its thing. Now that that's finished up, we're going to move the original GPSD file to a backup. That way, when we download our new GPSD file, we will always retain our original in case we need to come back to that at some point in the future. Next, we're going to download a new GPSD file from my GitHub page with this command here, this wget command. Let's go ahead and run it and give it just a couple of seconds. Doesn't take long at all to get done. We'll clear that screen out, and this next command is just going to set some reference information in cronny. So go ahead and run that one. Next, we're going to create a symlink using this command here. So again, copy that and paste it into the terminal. Now that we've got that done, we're going to move on to the installation of Direwolf. We will be building that from source, but we do need a few dependencies. So we'll copy this first line right here so we can go ahead and get those dependencies installed. Give that just a couple of minutes and it'll be finished up. Now that we have the dependencies, let's go ahead and git clone Direwolf. This will put it into a directory in your home directory so that we can go ahead and build that from source. Now that we've got Direwolf downloaded, we're going to move into the Direwolf directory, create a new directory called build, and move into it. And then we will start building Direwolf with these 4 commands. Once you are inside your new build directory right here, we're just going to run cmake space ... We'll go ahead and press enter and give that a few minutes to complete. After cmake completes, we need to run the make command. We'll do that with make space -j space 4, and that's just going to tell the make command to use all 4 of the processors. Once that finishes up, we'll just run sudo make install to go ahead and install the Direwolf instance that we just built from source. And finally, we're going to run make space install -conf. That will install the configuration files for us. All right, now that Direwolf is built and installed, let's go ahead and move back to the home directory with just running the cd command. And next, we're going to create a new file that's going to tell the system how to deal with our sound card. So we'll use the sudo nano command here. That's going to bring us into a blank file. We're going to go back over to this document and then just copy and paste this data right here. And what this is going to do is tell the system that anytime it sees a USB sound card, to go ahead and automatically assign that card number 3. That way it doesn't randomly get assigned, and we know that our USB sound card will always be card 3. Once you've got that pasted in, press Ctrl S to save and Ctrl X to exit. Now, at this point, you do need to go ahead and plug in your GPS to the Raspberry Pi. Once you get that plugged in, let's run this command right here, which is ls space /dev /serial /by-id. And you should see something like this right here, assuming you don't have anything other than your GPS plugged in. I'm going to highlight that information and copy it. We'll go ahead and configure our GPSD file so it knows where to find our GPS. We'll do that with sudo space nano space /etc /default /GPSD. Once we're inside this file, we want to make 2 changes. The first one is right here where it says USB auto equals false. We want to change that to be true. And then under devices, I'm going to take out this TTY-ACM0. We're going to give it /dev /serial /by-id / and finally we're going to paste in that information that we copied just a second ago. Once you've got both of the changes made in this file, go ahead and press Ctrl S to save it and Ctrl X to exit out. Now we do need to restart our GPSD service. We will do that with sudo space systemctl space restart space GPSD. We'll go ahead and press return, and that will restart GPSD, so it will load those changes we just made. Now let's run cgps and verify that our GPS does have a lock. Now, this may take 5 to 10 minutes after you've plugged in your GPS for it to get a lock, but you can see that I've got good latitude and longitude coordinates right up here, and I've got a good grid square right down here at the bottom. So now that I know that that's working, I'm just going to press Q to get out of this screen. Guys, if you have problems with your GPS getting a lock, go ahead and try moving that closer to a window. If it's still not getting a lock, double check your steps in here. Make sure you didn't miss anything or misspell anything. Remember, Linux is case sensitive. All right, so the next thing we want to do is go ahead and connect the Digirg Lite to the Raspberry Pi, and then we're going to run this arecord space -l command next. Let me clear that screen, and let's go ahead and run that command. And you'll see that we get card 3 device 0, which is exactly what we expect to get. Now, the critical information here that we are looking for is, in fact, the card number and the device number. So that's going to be 3 and 0. We're going to need that information here in just a second when we do the Direwolf config file. First thing we need to do, though, is I'm going to list out my home directory, and you'll see that we've got a direwolf.conf file right here. We're going to just make a backup copy of that real quick. So let's do move space direwolf.conf space direwolf.conf.bkup, and that will just move that file from being called direwolf.conf to being called direwolf.conf.backup. That way we've always got a good backup file that we can come back to if we need to. Next, let's go ahead and run nano space direwolf.conf. That's going to create a new Direwolf configuration file, and you'll find that that file is empty. Now let's jump back over to this page, and we're going to copy everything in this gray box right here, and we're going to paste that information into our direwolf.conf file. Now what this is, right up at the first line, the A device is our sound card, and you'll see that 3,0, that's that card 3 and device 0. We're going to run this over channel 0, which you can see right there, and we do need to update the call, and you can use your call here and whatever SSID you find appropriate. For this particular case, I'm going to use -3. The next line says modem 1200. That's just telling it what baud modem to use. The next line, GPSD, tells Direwolf that we want to use GPSD or our GPS for the tracking information that we need. So that's where Direwolf is going to get its latitude and longitude information. This PTT CM108 line is what triggers the Digirg Lite when Direwolf is ready to transmit. These two lines here give us another way to access Direwolf should we decide we need that in the future. Honestly, in this particular setup, these two lines could be left out. And finally, we've got our T-beacon line. The T-beacon line simply says delay for 30 seconds and then transmit every minute. Now, honestly, every minute is probably too often. You probably want to set this somewhere around every 3 minutes or so. Then via wide 1-1, which will get us to the closest digipeater, which will repeat us one more time so that we can hit a wide area digi that will also eye-gate us. And then the symbol that we're going to use is the car. So that's the symbol equals car out there at the end. Once we've got all of this in there, let's just press Control S to save it and Control X to get out of it. Now that we know our Direwolf is configured correctly and the GPS has a lock, I'm just going to clear that screen and I'm going to start Direwolf by simply running Direwolf. You should see some information on the screen about it's using this GPIO for PTT control. That is the CM108 PTT. You'll also see that we have a fix using GPS and we have a 3D fix. And if we give that about probably 90 seconds, we should see the line pop up that lets us know that it has transmitted our location. Now you'll also see some information coming in. My digipeater is also running in the background, so Direwolf is going to hear those packets being transmitted. It's not going to do anything with them. It's just displaying that information here inside of Direwolf. Now it wouldn't take very much to change this over from being a tracker to being a digipeater. It would really only be changing a couple of lines in the config file. But you can see right here, this line is the one I was looking for and waiting to come up. You see my call and the -3, and it's transmitted the beacon out using wide 1-1 and my latitude and longitude. Now, if you want to know how to auto start this at boot, then stick around for the next video. We'll be walking through the startup script line by line so that you can understand exactly what's going on. If you found today's information helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up before you head off. We will see you on the next one. Until then, 7-3.